what are some of the two maybe do's and don'ts they have to keep in mind if I'm a let's say brick and mortar company, or if I'm even let's say a new age economy company or a click and mortar company, right? What are the two sort of fundamental things I should keep in mind for the do's and the don'ts from the company's perspective? And then maybe even let's flip to the Gen Z to say that if I have a Gen Z consumer, are there things that I should be kind of reasonable about as a consumer, or is too much power being handed to me as a consumer? I don't know if there's anything like that, but perhaps, as you rightly said, that maybe the social media and the access that we have has that kind of created almost too much of a good thing for the consumer, right? So, are there some things that the Gen Z should also watch out as you think about brands and their expectations? So, two final questions. One is some do's and don'ts from the company's perspective, and then maybe do's and don'ts from the Gen Z perspective.
So, it's something I keep telling every brand or company that I work with. Always keep listening to the consumer, because this is the first do. It is so imperative because consumers are changing, their requests are changing, their feedback is coming almost virtually 24/7. So your ability to listen should be exceptionally high. And you have tools available at your disposal to listen to data, to be able to collate data, to understand trends. It is very rare that we are caught unawares. There are times we're caught unawares about what is happening. Regulatory changes, we are caught unawares, environmental changes. But consumer shifts do not happen tomorrow morning. Consumer does not wake up and say, I will change the way I consume tomorrow morning. They normally give you enough indicators. You've got to be there to listen. I think as business leaders, it is imperative that, top tier in businesses spend time just listening to the consumers. They'll more often than not tell you what's going wrong, tell you what's going right, and you can fix it. And the second thing, there's a beautiful talk by Malcolm Gladwell where he talks about too much choice is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And, I feel the fatigue of choice so often. So the second thing for a brand to do, or a company or a service or a product to do, is keep it simple. Mm-hmm. If you can tell anyone simply, and specifically for the Gen Z context, because they're constantly on. They're always bombarded by messages. There was a time when we used to, as marketeers, get very worried. There is the death of television, hoardings are going away. How will we reach the consumer? Do you know the amount of information that we are telling our Gen Z consumers every single minute, because they're being served something digitally right in front of their eyes all the time? It's not passive, like, how some hoarding you're passing while you're driving. It's actually actively you're communicating. If a brand can keep it simple, they've got it made, because we do not decision-making fatigue if it's simple. If a brand can clearly communicate and consistently communicate, they have it made in whichever category. You go airline or T-shirts or soap or, holidays or whatever it is. So to my mind, listen. I cannot stress that enough, and continuously listen. It's not something you do once a year and get happy about it, and keep it simple. We are all suffering from fatigue and over communication. So if you're simple and you're consistent, on the other side, and I like to say this to everybody who's young, even, younger than Gen Z, the internet is a very good and a very bad thing. Nothing ever goes away. So be very careful what you're putting out there, because you may have put it in a context which is very different. And, it will come to sort of haunt you at a very different point in life. So just because there is an ability to share does not mean you should. There is certain things which you should be measured about. And, it's very interesting. I did a lot of work for insurance for a time being. And how, everybody on an insurance form can easily say, I never smoke, I never drink when you're getting health insurance. But if you've put a Facebook photo with your friends at a party and you're drinking, you're drinking. Yeah. So never lie on your forms. That is one thing. Yeah. But apart from that, remember, these things come to you. When you go out and make a statement, which is pro or anti something, and you might change your view later, that statement never goes away. So the EU is actually ruling to purge people's past and privacy, etc., because we have not realized how much access we are giving to people. As long as it's done consciously, to my mind, it's good. If you're doing it consciously. But since these devices are in our hands all the time, it becomes second nature. I think, it's a third hand for most people, our devices.
Yeah.
And you never really know what your third hand is doing. So be careful, be measured. There's always logic in that, right? There's always, don't do something in anger. Put it out there for the world to see. It's just, so that's my, and also I'm very in this generation has a cancel culture. I genuinely think just because, it's also a function of the adoption culture. The rate at which brands become 100 crores are much faster than you and I have ever seen it happening, right? That's because of a very fast adoption culture. Unfortunately, with that comes a very fast cancel culture. So, like our, and I sound very old when I say this, with conventional wisdom of, Sanskrit being Ati Sarvatra Varjit, it's just, let's just take a breath before we cancel, because the impact of that is very high.